Welcome to Camp Constitution Radio with your host, Hal Shurtleff. The show is heard on WBCQ The Planet every Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then it repeats on Friday, I believe, at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and is also heard on IPMNation.com Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. on Eastern Standard Time. You can find our show on Podomatic.com as well. Just type in Camp Constitution, and then most of the shows we upload on that. And also on our YouTube channel, Camp Constitution's YouTube channel. We have quite a few of the shows over the last several years, and we even have a playlist. So a lot of great people we've interviewed over the years, and some really good information. The show originates in WBCQ out of Monticello, Maine, in Aroostook County, and is heard all over the world. And it is sponsored by Camp Constitution, which, among other things, runs a week-long family camp. And this year's camp will be held in the Berkshires of Western Massachusetts from August 5th to the 11th. And we have quite a lineup. So please check our website, campconstitution.net. Our YouTube channel, please subscribe to that. And also like us on Facebook. Well, I'm very pleased to announce that finally we're able to hook up with our guest today from Texas, Sharon Jones and Mike Parker. How you doing, folks?
Hello, we're doing well.
Doing well, thank you.
Well, I wanted to do a special event, a special show dedicated to the late Dr. Mildred Jefferson, and I can't think of two better people to have on. Sharon, why don't you talk a little bit about yourself, and then Mike, you can talk about yourself and your connections to Dr. Jefferson, and then we'll take it from there. So, Sharon?
Hello, Hal. My name is Sharon Roberson Jones. I'm originally from Carthage, but had moved to the Dallas-Fort Worth area for 27 years, and I was blessed to receive a grant to do an abstinence program in East Texas. Thus, I moved back home. And while here, we were also charged to do a service learning project. And by chance, I had posted something on Dr. Mildred Jefferson just because she was from Carthage. Mm-hmm. And one thing led to another, which one of my friends, Kelly Reeves, she introduced me to Mike Parker, who was actually doing a project of Dr. Mildred Jefferson, which was a bust. And so one thing led to another, and I'm just so blessed to have met Mike. And really, he's the one who engineered everything. I'm his support, so I'll let Mike take it from here.
Okay.
Well, my name is Mike Parker. I'm a trial lawyer here in Carthage. I've been practicing here for 37 years or a little bit more, I guess, this year. Panola County, Texas, is over here in what we call the piney woods of East Texas. Our primary industry here is the oil and gas business and agriculture, including forestry and cattle and poultry production and things like that. It's a rural county. But Carthage has the distinction of having been designated the best small town in Texas. But
that's great. With all the small towns in Texas, that's quite a compliment.
Well, it is. It's a great little town. We also have the Texas Country Music Hall of Fame here. Carthage and Panola County was the home of Jim Reeves as well as Tex Ritter, some very well-known country music artists a few years ago. But I've been here for about 37 years. It's a small town, about 6,300 people. I was felony prosecutor here initially, and then I was county judge. And then since that time, since the late 80s, I've been practicing law, primarily have a trial practice.
And did you personally know Dr. Jefferson?
No, I didn't. And that's one of my great regrets is that I never met her. And my interest in her came about shortly after her death. Carthage being a small town, we kind of take turns doing everything. So I had, like I said, I'd been county judge. I'd been president of the Chamber of Commerce and the Industrial Foundation and the local Lions Club, been real active in my church, and I thought I had been pretty plugged into the community and thought I knew pretty much what was going on around here. But then one day, about 8 years ago, I was reading the newspaper that's published in Longview, which is a bigger town, still not a real big city, but I guess they've probably got 75,000 people. And I was reading their newspaper, and I was reading this article about this lady who had just died, who had had such a wonderful life. Dr. Jefferson. It talked about her contributions. It talked about how she had overcome the adversity of being born into a great deal of poverty, where there were not very many opportunities for African-American ladies, particularly back in the 30s and 40s, but that nonetheless she had gone on to just accomplish such great things and accomplish things that truly had eternal significance. And so I was just fascinated by this lady. And then I got to the end of the article and saw where it said that she had considered Panola County her home county and considered Carthage her hometown.
That's right. Yeah.
And it just struck me as incredulous that I could have lived here and been that plugged into my community and had never heard her name uttered in any context at any time, the entire time that I'd been living here and being involved in the community. And it just struck me that that was not right, and we needed to remedy that. And
well, I was so pleased to see her given this incredible honor, her very much deserved honor of a bust, and that was quite an accomplishment. I know Sharon got a hold of me last year, invited me down to the original unveiling at the high school, and then this February, just past February 22nd, and I just was unable to go. But I think one of my friends went down there, Earl Shawley, from the Boston area, one of Dr. Jefferson's many volunteer drivers.
I don't think he was able to come. There was a Mark Stemniski who had been an associate of hers. I think they had both run unsuccessfully for political office at the same time, and they had traveled to a lot of campaign events, and he drove down for it. But he's the only one of whom that was able to come down for it.
Well, I first met Dr. Jefferson in 1989. I think it was at a pro-life event, and she was an incredible lady. By the way, she loved Texas. She said that she never experienced any racial prejudice growing up in her town of Carthage. And,
well, she was very kind to have said that, because her cousin, Reverend Kurthel Roberts, told me a story. I had asked him, what do you think there was about her family or her background that even allowed her to conceive of such greatness as a child growing up in Panola County? And he was telling me that because her family was had a lot of educators and had a lot of pastors, and so her family was fairly well educated and well read, and that she was exposed to reading and things early in life, and that she had kind of been identified as having a really special intellect, and that because of that, they had made special arrangements for her to be allowed to go into the local library at night.
Really?
And so that story really resonated with me and probably helped me be aware a little bit more than I had been before of just some of the things that she probably faced. But apparently it never manifested itself in her as bitterness or anything.
No, absolutely not. No,
and did what she wanted, what she needed to do. And as far as people from Panola County, I can't imagine anyone whose life has had greater eternal significance than Dr. Jefferson.
Yeah, for the sake of the listeners who may not know too much about her, although I've mentioned her on the show over the year, Dr. Mildred Jefferson, Dr. Mildred Fay Jefferson, was the first black woman to graduate from Harvard Medical School. She was a surgeon. And she's told me, by the way, that she didn't go to Harvard to be the first black woman to graduate. So she didn't particularly like to be introduced that way, but she said, if it helps the cause, go ahead and use it. In other words, if it helps give me more credibility and whatever, go ahead and do it. But what made her, that was an accomplishment enough. And she said that every time she sneezed, the liberal newspapers would give her attention until they found out that she was a very conservative, patriotic, and she was outspokenly pro-life. And at that point, she was almost kind of kept at arm's distance. She was a perennial candidate, well, maybe every 2 years anyway, for the U.S. Senate from Massachusetts. And, and I was obviously supporting her candidacy over the years. The Republican Party in Massachusetts, unlike Texas for the most part, is made up of the people who lead it tend to be very liberal. We call them limousine liberals or Rockefeller Republicans. But she was a force to be reckoned with, and nobody wanted to debate her. She was a brilliant, not just a brilliant lady, but a brilliant person. And my late friend Samuel Blumenfeld, who was one of the pioneers in the homeschool movement, and Sam was an editor at Grosset and Dunlop. He knew Ayn Rand. He knew some world leaders. He said that Dr. Jefferson was the most brilliant person he ever met, and he met a lot of brilliant people. And I delighted. I didn't drive her a whole lot. She used to speak for me at various venues, and I believe the last presentation she gave was at our summer camp, Camp Constitution, in 2010. She came in, and that's the first time she looked her age. We never knew how old she was. She was 39 years old. She was spry. She always looked in perfect health. But I know by that time I saw her, I said, she's looking a little aged. I didn't realize she was in her 80s. It was remarkable. I couldn't believe that she was that old. She spoke for about 10 minutes, and she really that video is on our YouTube channel, Camp Constitution's YouTube channel. And then she was supposed to speak at the State House in Boston on Constitution Day, mid-September, and I was supposed to pick up 2010. I called her to say, hey, where would I pick you up? We used to always pick her up at a deli that was near her home, the P&H Deli. That was her famous spot we would drop her off. And she said she's not able to make it. She's a little under the weather. I said, that's up. And then she died within, a short time after that. And but she lived a remarkable life. And so tell us a little bit about the bust and maybe the artist who did it and where it's on display. And I think you have some video of that, don't you? And where could people see that?
Sharon has some video of that she's working on. And but when I first conceived of some kind of project to honor Dr. Jefferson here, my first stop was a guy that moved down here probably 15 years ago, maybe 20. He's a sculptor. His name is Bob Harness, and it's kind of unusual for a town the size of Carthage to have a resident sculptor, but he has kind of transformed the landscape here. He did a huge statue of Tex Ritter and his horse, White Flash, that is in front of the Texas Country Music Hall of Fame. The mascot for the local junior college is a pony, and so he did this stallion rearing up in the middle of a fountain at the college. And then his most recent project, I think, is probably, 20 feet tall, but it's a statue that he created of Jesus carrying someone that is kind of a celebration of that poem, The Footprints in the Sand.
Oh, yes.
So it is on the loop here and has become quite a tourist attraction. So first, I didn't want it to just be something I did. I wanted to get the community involved. And so I went over and I talked to Bob. He lives in my neighborhood, and he gave me a good deal on it, told me what he'd need to get started. And then he told me that, incidentally, a lady that lives across the street from him who teaches a gifted and talented class here in our public school at the time, Brenda Giles, had actually had her students do a section of their study on Dr. Jefferson.
Really?
So she had accumulated a lot of materials and everything, which really moved me along a lot faster than I would have gone otherwise. And so I gave Bob enough to get started on doing the wax model of it and everything. And then a good friend of mine was Clara Jones. She was our county clerk. black lady. And so I asked her, I said, well, Clara, if I want to get some people in the community, I want this to be something that we all do together as a community. And so she told me some people that she thought would be interested in being on the committee. And then we formed a little committee and started trying to get a little money. And the total concept, the thing that I would still like to accomplish is, now that we have erected the bust on the town square, I would like to continue raising enough money where we could endow a scholarship to the local college, because they have a very active, very well-recognized nursing program, health science program. And I don't want this to be something that we have just finished and then we just quit talking about Dr. Jefferson. I think her story is such an inspiring story that I want every graduating class that comes through Carthage High School to hear about Dr. Jefferson. And I think having a scholarship in her honor would give us that opportunity. So we're still working towards that.
Well, I'd like to help out in some capacity, so I'd be happy to help, get the word out about it. And, of course, she had a lot of friends here in the Boston area. And when I attended, she had 2 memorial services in Greater Boston. One of them was at a Catholic church. Although she wasn't a Catholic, she had great respect and, a lot of friendship in the Catholic community. And then they had one at actually Harvard, at the chapel, Harvard University. And it was almost like a driver reunion. And it was kind of interesting. She didn't drive, and she liked to have guys who looked like they could handle themselves. Although she was never really in any danger, because she was very outspoken on certain issues, especially the pro-life movement. She felt that a little secure around somebody who could sort of handle themselves. And we would ask her, who drove Dr. Jefferson the furthest? And the guy said, well, I drove her from Boston to St. Louis. So I think he got the prize. St. Louis, and then all kinds of detours. I would just take her around Greater Boston every so often, but she, it was a real privilege, because to me, just being in her presence, I could get college credits for it. We would have great conversations, and she was just a fascinating lady. She actually was very multidimensional. She, of course, knew a lot about the medical profession, the pro-life movement, but she was an outspoken conservative. There are some that say that she was responsible for changing Ronald Reagan's position on the pro-life issue, which no doubt helped him get elected, because prior to that he had been very much in the pro-abortion camp. She spoke to groups all over the country. She would travel quite a lot. She didn't like to fly. Basically, she would drive, or she would have someone drive her. But she was the head of the National Right to Life over the years, the Massachusetts Right to Life. And she would always, every time she would speak, if she's available, she'd come out, whether it be 3 people in the room or 300 or 400. It wouldn't matter to her. She said, and she was just very honored to be able to speak to groups. She was a delightful person to have in the house. She'd been in my home a number of times, and my children loved her. My wife just thought the world with her, and she had an incredible laugh. And she used to laugh at my jokes. I said, anyone who laughs at my jokes, you got to really like. So I'd love to come down there, and share some experiences with her. She was also on the board of directors of an organization called Western Goals. It was started in the 70s to mid 80s. They were very much concerned about the situation in Western Europe and having a strong military. She was friends with Dr. Larry McDonald of Georgia. I don't know if you know that name. Have you heard that name before, or Sharon?
Not that I recall.
Yeah, he was a congressman from near Atlanta, and he was on board the plane that was shot down by the Soviets September 1st, 1983, the KL-007. But they were good friends, and she knew General Patton, of course, the son, and many other people that served on that board. I do have a collection of some of articles about her that have been written from the 70s and 80s. She was interviewed in a now-defunct magazine called Review of the News, with a very modest circulation. And she told me that she was running for the U.S. Senate, and she got something like $15,000 or $20,000 mailed to her, in small donations, unsolicited donations, as a result of her being interviewed in that. And I'll be happy to share that with you if you're interested. get you a copy or in some format.
Well,
so
we to accumulate some things like that at the college, and at least a portion of her papers or something. I'm just pretty sure that there's not anybody else of equal significance that has arisen from Panola County, and I think that we just need to acknowledge that in some significant way.
Oh yes, and I think that her work was so important, what she did, and I think that her legacy should go on. Now, I did start a Facebook page to honor her. I haven't done a whole lot with it, and I think there's more and more people get involved with it, and that can share their information and post articles. And there are a number of videos out there on YouTube, because she spoke all kinds of places over the years, whether it be Eagle Forum or functions that I hosted. She was a regular guest on a TV show, a cable TV show in New Hampshire, and a lot of those are available. And so I think it's important. So people get to know, people in your community, in your county, really get to know who this woman was and the significance she had.
Well, and I've watched quite a few of the videos of her speeches, because not having known anything about her other than what I had started to pick up in the newspaper and the things that I could find, I was a little reluctant to ask the community to get involved without me being pretty confident that there wasn't going to be something that arose that would maybe call into question whether she was deserving of that honor. And so I tried to, I guess, vet her, as we say now. Right. And in the course of doing that, I just became more and more fascinated. She was so passionate and so articulate, and it just heightened my regret that I never got to meet her in her life.
Well, it was fascinating. She had an incredible speaking voice. She was on the petite side, but her voice would just project. And she told me that there was this company, some kind of company that puts tapes on books, and they initially asked her if she would be willing to do some readings, some recordings of certain books, and she said she'd be happy to. And then they got back to her and they said, "Well, Dr. Jefferson, you don't sound black enough." And she got such a big kick out of that, the condescending white liberals. You don't sound black enough. Like, how? What is that supposed to mean? She got a big kick out of that. So she never got that particular gig to do books on tape. So again, if there's when these videos become available, I would really appreciate if I could, get a link to them so I could post them, and let people in my circles know about her, about the ceremony you had down there.
Yes, hopefully within the next week, we'll have something completed. We have a draft of one that I did send to you. It's YouTube, but
yes.
It had some little glitches in it, so we hope to finish that this week.
That'd be great.
And I want to say this about Sharon. Sharon is very humble in this whole thing, but I'm telling you, we would not be where we are had it not been for Sharon, because I had great intentions, but I kept getting preoccupied with my law practice and other things, and so I would just work in spurts. I'd do a little bit, then I'd go months without doing anything, and then Sharon got involved, and she's a great organizer and really pushed this thing along. And because of her involvement, she got the entire student body at the high school involved in it, and they were made aware of Dr. Jefferson's life. And if I had done it without Sharon, that would not have happened. So Sharon's involvement made it better and faster, and so I'm very thankful for her involvement in this.
Now, Sharon, did you know Dr. Jefferson personally?
No, I did not, but I was just intrigued by her story. The community in which she grew up, I have several friends out there. I guess I can say I'm only in my early 50s. So, no, I did not know her.
Oh, you're a young lady. You're a spring chicken. Well, I'm 59, so anyone under that is pretty young.
Yes, but I enjoyed telling the students about her, especially those who were challenged economically and who we would call at-risk students, just to let them know, regardless of your background, regardless of the money that you have, you can make it. And she was used as an example that she, I don't know if they were just preachers, country preachers, and she seemed to make it all the way to Harvard. So if she can do it, we can do it in this day and time.
Absolutely. I think a wonderful project would be a book, maybe geared towards a teenager or even a younger person. I think it'd be a wonderful project, talk about her life and the accomplishments she had, and the courage. She had a lot of she had moral courage. She had physical courage too, but she had a lot of moral courage because she did things that weren't politically correct. And if she took the wide road, she would be a household name. She would probably be recognized on Black History Month, but she took a narrow road as a believer and a righteous person. And to me, that makes it even all the more bigger in the eyes of the people. That she could have been, like I said, she could have been a household name and been a celebrity and been someone, but she took a different course, and she took the right course.
Surprisingly, I didn't hear of her until after she passed away. And when introducing her to the students at the high school, I asked them about several prominent people from Carthage. And, of course, these teenagers don't know who Tex Ritter is. And so I brought it down to, pro players who had come from Carthage, and even Linda Davis, who recorded with Reba McEntire. But to their
yes.
Yes, and she's from Carthage. She graduated from Carthage High School. And to their surprise, they didn't realize that Lady Antebellum is Linda Davis's daughter with roots from Panola County. So it gave me great pride to introduce them to Dr. Mildred Jefferson, to let them know of their legacy, as well as her having to deal with President Reagan, and not just a local person, but she was international. So
she was definitely an international, well-known person. And I say she's spoken practically, I don't know if she's been to Hawaii. I don't know if she'd take a boat to Hawaii, but she just traveled all over the country all the time. And she was on radio shows. She was, spoke pro-life groups, a lot of, Christian conservative type groups, Rotary, anybody would invite her. And she'd, again, big groups, small groups. She was always available, and just a delightful person to deal with. A real blessing. And one of the unfortunate things is that there was a young man who was her last volunteer secretary, and all of her papers are at Harvard. She obviously that was her alma mater, and she thought that would be a good place to put them. And she had a couple of unpublished books, and I don't know if they'll ever get published. You can actually go to Harvard and look at her papers, but it's not like you can take them out and you could take pictures of them. But there's still so much out there that I think it'd be a great project. Well, we only have a few minutes, a few seconds left actually. So I want to thank both of you for not only coming on, but for the wonderful work you're doing to make people aware of this incredible lady's legacy. And let's stay in touch. And I'll send you a copy of this recording when it becomes available.
Well, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to talk about Dr. Jefferson, and I certainly hope that some of your listeners will feel led to contribute to her scholarship. We would love to see that become a reality.
And when that does, if you can send me a link to your contact information, I'll make sure that the listeners and anyone else that coming, watching this on YouTube or wherever else has access to that.
Okay, well, great.
All right. God bless both of you, and thank you for listening to Camp Constitution Radio on WBCQ The Planet. And until next week, may God bless you.